Welcome back, folks. We're getting ready to jump on into our second series of the day. Team Secret taking on 𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗀. 𝘀𝗀, I'll just head straight to you with 𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗀. 𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗀 starting to look like a team after what was a questionable start to the split, and now find themselves tied in fourth place with 𝘂𝗵𝗔 Esports, and a chance for them maybe to be able to cement their spot in fourth as they look to secure a playoff spot.
Definitely, and they had lost a very, very close series to 𝘂𝗵𝗔, who is their direct competitor for the fourth place, and this means to them, of course, that they cannot drop unnecessary games anymore, or at all. And Team Secret, for them, it might just be a must-win, but gotta say, Team Secret, as they have looked recently, they haven't looked too bad, so it might just be a series where Secret has a decent upset potential.
And Tim, going over to you and looking at some of Team Secret's recent performances, they had the 2-1 loss to the side of 𝘀𝗀cie, then they had the 2-0 win over Team 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗏, and then they had a 2-0 loss to Cerberus. So for Secret, I feel that they're this team that are essentially bottom of the league with the exception of 𝘀𝗏𝗏, but every now and then they're able to pull off some fringe wins against teams that you wouldn't really expect.
Yeah, I mean, especially the series against 𝘀𝗀𝗏 showed that they can compete with teams that are more on the upper side of the table. Even though, I like with 𝘀𝗀𝗏, it's really hard to say, right? Because you have a team that was really struggling, and I'm not too sure how much it is to Team Secret just smurfing or 𝘀𝗀𝗏 just struggling a lot. Overall, I think, though, the 2-0 over Team 𝘀𝗏𝗏 is very important for them because that just means that they're at least a step above that competitor, and now they have to win a lot of the next games. I mean, they're playing against both Saigon as well as 𝘂𝗵𝗔 and BTS this week. So I think all three games have to be must-wins for them to have a shot for playoffs.
An incredibly important week for the side of 𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗀. But 𝘀𝗀, let's dive into the matchup itself between 𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗀 and Team Secret, because in the previous series that we saw between 𝘀𝗀𝗏 and Cerberus, we talked about it being a jungle matchup, as we so often do in the VCS, as we have so many incredibly talented junglers. 𝘁𝗀 against 𝘁𝗀, do you think this matchup boils down to these two, or are you looking towards another role, essentially?
Somewhat 𝘁𝗀 against 𝘁𝗀 is for sure a matchup to watch here, because 𝘁𝗀 is probably the best player on the side of Team Secret who really pull their back on their side. And 𝘁𝗀, he hasn't really decided if he wants to have a good split or a bad split, because there's like one game he looks decent or very good, and the other he just looks very awful, and it looks like he doesn't really have a clue which lane to play around and what really to do in team fights. So the jungle matchup is definitely a very volatile one. But I also want to highlight another lane here, which would be the mid lane, because 𝘁𝗏𝗏 has played a lot of the recent games, hasn't looked as awful as in the beginning of the split. And on the other side, there's 𝘀𝗀𝗏, who, of course, doesn't really have the best split so far, but he still sometimes shows that he has it in him. So I really wonder if 𝘀𝗀𝗏 shows up today, and since Rebel is here today, he likely will do that.
I think this is actually my first time casting on 𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗏 with a Rebel this split. I think I did one game with him, the last split, potentially. Tim, I actually want to touch on this bottom lane because I think 𝘀𝗀𝗏 made a very good point about 𝘁𝗀𝗏 being the best player for the side of Team Secret, but I think there's one other player that could potentially join into that conversation, and for me, that's 𝘀𝗏, because I think he's been playing phenomenally well in the ADC role, playing against 𝘁𝗏𝗏 and either 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗏 or Shogun. That could make the difference, right? Because 𝘀𝗏𝗏𝗏's been a little bit weaker than Shogun, and maybe if he's playing, it's a bit of a win condition in the bottom lane for Team Secret.
Yeah, I think 𝘀𝗏𝗏 has been performing very well, and on the other hand, I just pray that they're playing Shogun. I mean, honestly, like, their success in between, I think, came a lot through Shogun as well. Yes, they lost a few games, but it was against the stronger teams. I think Shogun had some very good performances on the way, though, and really losing to 𝘂𝗵𝗔 was, I think, a hard hit for them, because it was the direct contender for the playoff spot, and I think bringing back Shogun back in can be a good move for them to contest that bot lane.
And also touching back on this mid lane now, 𝘀𝗀, talking about 𝘀𝗀𝗏. We won't talk too much about 𝘀𝗀𝗏 because I'm sure Rebel will be wanting to bring up an infinite number of points about his favorite mid laner. But 𝘀𝗀𝗏, he's been struggling in the CS department, which we know, but he does sometimes pull out some of these spicier picks, which we saw a lot in Spring Split, but we haven't really seen so far in this Winter Split.
Yeah, we haven't really, and it's kind of the problem with those players who play the style 𝘀𝗀𝗆 does, right? They sack some CS just to play skirmishes better, and when they don't play these skirmishes well, they look like absolute clown. That this happened to 𝘀𝗀𝗆 kind of, I won't say countless times this split, but a decent amount. And maybe I just want to see a little bit more of the traditional style from him, that he just plays farming mid laners or goes to 3F or just picks a silence in a good counter matchup and just runs away with the game like this, because this is something that 𝘀𝗀𝗆 is probably the best at. Also, maybe we're seeing the 𝘂𝟐 again. This is something he can also play, and maybe this is the way to really get into Team Secret's heads and find their way in.
And to go back to you, Tim, again, touching on this mid lane matchup and moving on over to the other side, looking towards 𝘁𝗏𝗆 or 𝘁𝗶𝗵. We'll have to see which one is playing. 𝘁𝗏𝗆's been having, it's been a weird split for him. He's had some decent performances, but he's also struggled from time.
Yeah, I think for both mid laners, it's going to be a bit of a redemption story, I would say. I think especially 𝘀𝗀𝗆 had both performances, and I'm not so sure who of the two mid laners plays, but I think mid lane can be very impactful, especially if we're looking at the jungle matchup, right? I mean, we saw it in the last series. Whoever got to push mid lane, whoever got to play with the jungle better, usually got off to an early start. And I want to see both mid laners just contest mid lane parity, make sure that you can play with your jungler. And even if you're maybe not too strong in the CS department, if you help out your jungler enough, it might just not matter.
Well, we are heading into picks and bans, and 𝘀𝗀𝗆, Tim, you'll both be very thankful that we finally see some Nocturne presence. Sadly, though, it is in the ban list for Saigon Buffalo. 𝘀𝗀𝗆, take us away.
It just means that they really rated the Nocturne pick so much that they do not ever want to play against it. And it's, of course, something that you might just first pick on the blue side if you happen to have it open. I mean, the two teams just now showed that they really do not care that much about the Nocturne pick, which was surprising for us. And now it just leaves many more bot lane picks open. So we might just see 𝘁𝗏𝗆 versus 𝘁𝗏 again. I hope to see a 𝘁𝗏𝗆 first pick for Team Secret. I think this is the way really into going into. It would be the best start of the draft for sure on the side of 𝘀𝐷𝐷𝐷𝐷𝐷. But so far, I'm not too fond of 𝘀𝐷𝐷𝐷𝐷, and if he has played enough of the 𝘁𝗏𝗆s. I mean, you really want to put not that much pressure onto 𝘀𝗏𝗆 usually, but I think you just have to pick 𝘁𝗏𝗆s because he's just so good.
Yeah, for now we're not picking anything, so we can talk a bit about the bans. You talked about Nocturne earlier. We see another jungle ban in Graves, and then 3 mid laners being banned against 𝘀𝗀𝗆, or at least, I mean, one of them could be a top lane ban as well. And we might now see finally. I mean, there's at least a timer, so we could see pick coming in, which would be amazing, of course. Or
we don't see a pick, because I'm pretty sure that timer. Okay, so that's the Thresh finally being banned, and now we'll see what Team Secret picks up. I just
pick everything.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
The timers were correct, we just didn't see the picks.
Nice. So we see 𝘁𝗆 first pick coming in to pick it away from 𝘀𝗀𝗆, who had some good performances on the champion. And on the other hand, it can be very strong pushing and roaming champions. 𝘁𝗏𝗆 being picked up for Shogun, though, and Dixon Zone, the jungle. 𝘁𝗏𝗆 is going to be the answer. The question is, do they want to go for something like the Morgana already, or do they just take a jungler and it's looking like a jungle for now?
Looks like they picked the jungle, and this just means that Morgana might just be picked up for the 𝘁𝗏𝗆s here. So you have the clear bot lane matchup here, and you could just then pincer the support role on the side of Saigon Buffalo to really make it hard for Team Secret to have a good bot lane matchup. But they also could just block in 𝘀𝗀𝗆's pick here. I mean, really, is it finally time? I said things week 1 that I want to see 𝘀𝗆𝗆, but I'm getting denied again. But I get to see Viktor, which is also like one of my favorite mid lane champions of this patch, maybe the best champion or pick in the mid lane on the whole patch overall, because Viktor is just such a strong champion with the crown of the Shattered Queen, with the Shadow Flame coming in, or maybe even other utility items like this Cosmic Drive. He really is strong in general, I like to say, because of his glorious evolution passive, where he just becomes a weight boss as soon as he hits the 300 stacks on it. And Viktor also very fine into the Vex, but I gotta say, 𝘀𝗀𝗆 doesn't like to farm very much, and with Viktor you need to farm very, very well.
He can take first strike, though. Especially in a Vex matchup, I would really like to see the rune. I think Viktor is one of the best users for the rune. And Vex, while she does have some range abilities, she usually does get outranged, and it's very easy for Viktor to proc it. Morgana and Alyssa are now the bans, so I'm expecting that they might be going for example, the Leona on bot lane, considering the bans, and just blind pick that. And on the other hand, both top laners, the Ken and the Jace, have been taken out. But I'm expecting that 𝘁𝗃 will get the last pick here on the top side.
I mean, you should. I mean, you just ban 2 supports and just pick the support you want yourself on the R4 there. I mean, I'm actually surprised that they didn't want to have Morgana themselves, but I guess I prefer well if those supports are banned out. And for 𝘁𝗃, I mean, depending on what's picked, you could just go for the Jax again, or maybe even the 𝘁𝗃, depending on what is picked by the side of Team Secret. Maybe even it will be 𝘁𝗃 versus Jax here, because this could be picked up for Nagia here. But he wants to hover our favorite champion, and he also locks it in.
Yay, Renekton, woohoo, and Rakan, yay. So the Rakan would be surprising because it's actually counterpick, so you counterpick yourself basically against 𝘀𝗀. Blitzcrank would be something I want to see. I mean, Blitzcrank is amazing. Not too sure how it would perform in this game, and that would be really somewhat of an older matchup, but Gragas does have a good matchup into 𝘀𝗀 if they want to go for it. It's very easy to cancel the 𝘀𝗀 W engage, and they end up deciding for it. I really like the pick. Still more of a pocket counter pick support at the moment, not too strong that you would blind pick it.
Yeah, and I really like the Gragas as well. You just said it. It's a good matchup against the 𝘀𝗀. You can just body slam her out of her Crashdown, which is the ability where she does fancy knock-up stuff, and this makes it very, very hard for the 𝘀𝗀 to just find the easy engage. And yeah, you can counterpick the top lane. They chose the 9 to the Renekton, so I'm just assuming that both teams do not like to play on the top lane at all and just leave it on the weak side. I mean, if they really do that and follow that plan, I'm not hating the Gnar pick that much, or even at all. I think the Gnar, in the situation like this, is an absolutely fine pick.
I have to agree with you. I think the Gnar is in a very solid position. Overall, I think both team comps are somewhat solid, but I would prefer Saigon's team comp. I think it has better scaling and doesn't rely so much on early snowballing. While, of course, Team Secret, with 4 of their champions, I mean, Renekton, Lee Sin, Vex, and Caitlyn, they all have good possibilities to get ahead. All of them are good snowball champions.
I also want to touch on this Gragas pick because it's the second time we've seen it in the support role so far in the VCS split. We saw it actually being played by Palette for Team 𝘁𝗀, which he sadly did lose on. Actually, something I want to bring up, this is Eddie's first time playing on the Caitlyn, and we've seen how impactful Caitlyn has been as well so far this split, 𝘀𝗀cie.
For sure, and I mean it's both actually on AD carries that where the supports are not that fitting to them. You would usually want both Caitlyn and Jinx played with a more of an supporting support that does like have some peel for you, like a Thresh with a Lantern, like a Morgana with a Black Shield, but they all bend those out, so it's kind of a mismatch for both spot lane sides, and I'm really looking forward to see who can really do more with it. I assume Shogun would like be slightly favored here because he has been like our AD carry to watch at on the side of 𝘁𝗃, where he is also the better strong side AD carry, and I also tend to like 𝘁𝗃's draft a bit more, and I think they will take him on.
Tim, final thoughts on the draft before I jump into game?
I think Saigon's draft is better, so Team Secret will win.
For God's sake. Not this old meme again. Either way, we are heading on into the Rift. 𝘀𝗀cie, Tim, thank you very much. We'll catch more from you after this game. Rebel, I'm going to bring you in with a love that. Do you know how many unique champions 𝘀𝗀gy has played so far this split?
9.
11.
I was going to say
And
11.
none of them are Victor.
Yes. So actually, he's played 10, so you just lied to me.
Well, no, it's 12 now, isn't it? Because it's 11, and now it's gone up to 12.
Nope, it's not. No. Anyway, let's come back to this, because this is an important distinction that I want to make about what this Victor pick actually does for this composition. And more importantly, an identity swap. This is my only time I'll get to talk about this, because I'd rather talk about Team Secret and what they've been doing recently. So I want to make this point. In their previous series against 𝘁𝗀, Saigon Buffalo did something extremely revolutionary, right? They didn't move 𝘀𝗀gy. LeBlanc was not moved pretty much at all during the laning phase during one of their first game. 𝘀𝗀gy had, I think it was 8.5 CS per minute. A reasonable amount of CS. Was actually CSing really well. Stood on the champion. Had some nice plays. When they aren't constantly pulling him to a side lane, he is a legitimate mid laner. This is a legitimate mid lane champion pick. This is a Victor. They don't expect him to move all that often, probably. Against the Vex, there's some possibilities for it, but I like that they're at least willing to play to a strength that potentially holds on their team, which is something that they did last split, which is relying on 𝘀𝗀gy to be good in the laning phase, or specifically ganking for 𝘀𝗀gy, rather than having him constantly move about on the map and taking away his resources.
Well, I shall try to bring up that point later. 𝘀𝗏 goes for a
goodness.
body slam, but he goes under tower. That is a little bit too aggressive, and it's not even level 2 yet in the bottom lane.
And Eddie also missing the Q was just so much. Level 2 captured by the side of Team Secret. A little bit worried there. Interesting little caveat about this bottom lane pick, especially the 𝘀𝗏. 𝘀𝗏 was a jungler for Cerberus for a very long time. So my suspect is that this is part of his champion pool. A little bit left over from that old-time jungling days where the 𝘀𝗏 was such a popular pick as BJ finds his way into the mid lane. Wow.
Flashes in with the wind becomes lightning. We'll tag on to 𝘁𝗏. But 𝘀𝗏 just not quite close enough to be able to follow up on that. Not even able to burn 𝘁𝗏's flash in the process.
I think right there it was an attempted play more so from BJ because it was a drive-by. You're not expecting the victor to be able to step past the wave, and if you are, it's almost certainly that 𝘁𝗏 is going to be able to know exactly what's coming. And so right there, it felt like a BJ decision to kind of flash or go for a W right there, which led to a fear, which was a burnt flash from the Xin Zhao, which is a little bit difficult to deal with. But at minimum, the pressure was put onto 𝘁𝗏, burnt a little bit, burnt the TP eventually because the back had come through, and that leads to a little bit of pressure being exchanged here on both sides.
And also, with regards to 𝘀𝗏, this is his 3rd series as well for the side of Team Secret. We saw him playing in that 2-0 against Flash, and then the 2-0 loss against the side of Cerberus. So we'll see now what 𝘀𝗏 can pull off against the middle of the pack teams, as he's been on both ends of the spectrum so far with his performances.
When we walked into the split, our expectations for Team Secret were decently high. We weren't expecting this team to go crazy, but we had at least some anticipation that this team would have some competitiveness behind it to some extent. But when they walked out after effectively only the win against the side of Team Flash, things were downhill. We were very down on this team. Ever since 𝘀𝗏 has come onto the roster and been here for the support role, this team has looked revitalized. It looks like they're just crisper pretty much across the board. They're more competitive. They make better decisions. They do a bunch of things a lot differently from what we saw in the beginning of the split, which wasn't necessarily the fault of 𝘀𝗏, but 𝘀𝗏 seems to have had a very positive effect on the team, especially on DNK, who, again, after that Zed game, we can't stop mentioning that Zed game because that was still one of the most unrealistic versions of like a 1v9 attempt from the likes of him. That had to be an indication of tilt. But ever since that day, it just seems like this team has had a completely different outlook on how this game needs to be played, which is why it's so interesting to see them against one of our middle of the pack teams, because Team Secret is not mathematically out of playoffs. They have the ability to make a really crazy reverse run. It would require them beating teams that they have no business beating, but that's kind of the whole intention of being able to come back after the early split.
That is essentially what makes it a miracle run. 𝘁𝗏, oh, the Qs are being blocked by DNK. He's going to flash. DNK goes in. First blood to the Team Secret jungle. And as we were saying during the drafting phase in the build-up to this game, DNK, arguably the best player for Team Secret. And he's consistently performing as well for the team every single series.
He is, even when the team was not having its greatest performances, he was still having good performances. It just felt like there was a time and a place where he wasn't having the positive impact that he would have needed to have in order to really kind of take this team to a different level. Interesting. Oh.
Teleport comes in, the collapse onto BJ. He's 1v2. He's not getting out of this, and Team Secret pick up the 2nd kill, and they say, hey, look, there's a Drake that's been leashed for us by BJ. Let's start it.
That is, BJ has had a really rough split. This has not been the greatest of splits for the jungler. Last split looked incredible, looked revolutionary, looked like a completely different breed of jungler, looked like somebody that was going to be able to contest with the likes of Ego and Levi in the long run. But this split just really has been completely knocked off course. Has not looked particularly good when it comes to his creativity in terms of pathing. Has not looked particularly good when it comes to mechanics. He makes boneheaded mistakes that it seems like he was not making in the previous split. Recently, we've seen him kind of go back to comfort with things like Olaf and 𝘁𝗏 and 𝘀𝗏 and some of these champions that are at least strong enough to use in the jungle. And I wonder if that's something that they will go back to in the long run. But it is at least a point of discussion that's worth having about BJ in his turnaround this split.
𝘁𝗏 engaging onto 𝘁𝗏. 𝘁𝗏 has the ultimate, and he's just going in. He doesn't even care that BJ is there, because I'm pretty sure he saw the wind become lightning animation, and he just gets the kill 1v2. 𝘁𝗏, take a bow.
It's such a difficult position. So many of these these VCS teams, they are counter picking this Renekton with Gnar. They see Renekton and they go, okay, let's take Gnar. until level 6 and even like into like the level 7, 8, 9 range, this champion can absolutely destroy Mininar. It's got no resistances, it doesn't have the health, it's got a ton of base damage on the likes of the Renekton, and it makes it so difficult to play into that, especially right here where the dive attempt was set up, but Hosmed seemed to lose control of the Narbar at the very end of this, because you saw that's the transformation right there, stops to get the ward because he saw that 𝘁𝗀 was hovering, but 𝘁𝗀 able to use the slice and dice to get on top of him, put enough damage into Hosmed for it to actually matter. 𝘁𝗀 had to bail too, because 𝘁𝗀 was the first one to that play, because again, it's not something that's super roam heavy for Froggy. It is instead something that he can sit in the laning phase with. They are trying to win the game without needing to just like completely goon around the map with their mid laner and take away all of his resources. But you can see the effect that it's having, where Hosmed's getting bullied a lot more, 𝘁𝗀's getting bullied a lot more.
Good play from Team Secret again onto Hosmed. Hosmed will die once again. And in fairness to Hosmed, he had a very nice CS lead over 𝘁𝗀. I think he was at 60 and he was at 30 or something before 𝘁𝗀 was able to get that kill and then collect the wave that had crashed into his tower. So Hosmed has been able to generate the CS lead. Sadly for him, 𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝘀 starting to play around this top side. And I just want to bring back something that you mentioned earlier, because that point has completely come into fruition about Froggy playing on this Victor, not having to roam as much. And he's got a CS lead over 𝘁𝗀, which is one of the things that he has been lacking so far this split.
It's never been a problem. A couple splits ago, this was a problem. Even when he was in laning phase, he wasn't actually doing anything. This doesn't matter because there's a fight. They're attempting to flip around this Rift Herald. Hosmed's not here yet, and there's no Narbar stack. So this is going to be, if they can get the Narbar stack, maybe there's a chance here for Saigon. The Rel got...
𝘁𝗀 is not going to be able to get the engage, but it's still going to go the way of 𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗀. 𝘁𝗀's going to be able to secure the Rift Herald. 𝘁𝗀 getting poked down. The Zap's going to be able to find a slow. The rundown from Hosmed. 𝘁𝗀 will get tagged. Hosmed will pick up the kill as 𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗀 get 2 kills for nothing. Or pardon me, 2 kills for 1, because 𝘁𝗀 did die, and they're able to secure the Rift Herald as well.
When you think about the amount of damage that actually comes out from a number of champions, I mean, you think about Gnar is going to be able to hit multiple people with multiple abilities, and this comes into play when you think about what Victor is able to do, everybody's able to do. Unfortunately, 𝘁𝗀 doesn't get like an amazing ultimate with the likes of the Rel, but they're able to trade very quickly, whack 1-for-1, because you know, this isn't really intended to be a frontline setup for the likes of the Renekton when he's down that bad, when he doesn't have the ultimate readily available. And afterwards, the run-in just is there because DNK was trying to go after the Rift Herald and ended up getting caught on the wrong side of the fight and ends up splitting. But a team fight like that, when you're playing into a Victor and into a 𝘁𝗀 this early, I mean, that AoE damage is going to make a massive difference. You need to find chunk damage so that your Caitlyn, who's doing single target, so that your Lee Sin, who's doing single target, is going to have an easier job bringing down priority targets. You just could not find that in the slightest. So even though Hosmed's Narbar was down, it was still a solid play.
𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗀 trailing by 1,000 gold. We've got a Drake up in 50 seconds time. Would potentially be the second Drake of the game. And we saw in our first series today so much priority going towards the Drakes and how much of an impact it was able to have for 𝘀𝗀xe in Game 1 and then for Cerberus in Game 2 and Game 3. And 𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗀, despite being behind, they've got a lot of, trying to think of the correct term for it, a lot of gold that they can secure courtesy of that Rift Herald.
They've got the potential future gold, I guess, is what you would call it, BFG.
I know there is a word for it, but I can't remember what it is.
It's a possibility. Either way, the ability to use that actually has a lot of interesting kind of ideas behind it, because you can use this in the Gnar lane to try to spike Hosmed past this Renekton, who has done well enough in the early game to really just kind of keep him on a leash without letting Hosmed take over the laning phase in terms of the split push. You can drop it in the bottom lane or the mid lane, try to spike the Victor past the laning phase, try to spike the 𝘁𝗀 up in terms of the team fighting, especially when they're going to be fighting for dragons and things like this. I know our desk talked about this. Already Team Secret confirmed the first dragon, but the second dragon is going to be competed for here by the likes of Saigon.
𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗀 just going to go straight in onto Team Secret, and they're able to chunk DNK down to half HP. 𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗀 look to pick up their third objective of the game. They picked up the first Drake, they picked up Rift Herald as well. Does 𝘀𝗀 look to go in? 𝘁𝗀, this time, he's still got his ultimate available. Can he find a better ult? Shadow Charge comes through, that's a decent explosive cast. And in goes 𝘁𝗀 onto the back line, but the Xin Zhao has already found one kill. DNK going and trying to find a kill onto 𝘁𝗀, unable to do so. Froggy just going to kill 𝘁𝗀. 𝘁𝗀 thought, hey, I'm back, so I can dive into a backline, I can do damage. And Froggy says, not a chance, mate, as the Rift Herald is dropped in the middle of the river as 𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗀 secure the Infernal Drake.
Going to turn directly up towards the top side, so going towards the mid lane. But another massively winning play for 𝘀𝗃_Buffalo, where the Vex isn't able to get together with 𝘀NK in this setup and actually create any semblance of a dive. And with a wave crashing in mid lane, 3 plates into the pocket of Shogun, that's so much gold that they're able to give over to their ADC, as well as taking away one of these dragons, so you don't have this definitive advantage walking into the later portions of the game. It is a Hex Rift that shows up in front of it. I want to see what happened on both sides, because I was paying attention mostly to the backline to call what was happening there while everything else was coming about. 𝘁𝗃 just split up everything. It was just 𝘂𝗏 who got pushed away from 𝘀NK. 𝘀NK ended up going back in to try to get 𝘁𝗃 on the backside of the fight, but that was just a sunk cost fallacy at that point. And 𝘀𝗏 was nowhere near dying to the Vex. He was absolutely winning that one-on-one against the likes of 𝘁𝗏 in the mid lane. What a nice look so far from the likes of Saigon. They're fighting their pieces that fit together in terms of their AoE with the Control Mage and Jinx and all of this good CC really does fit together very easily like a puzzle. We were hoping to see Team Secret kind of break this apart with 𝘀NK being more aggressive, 𝘂𝗏 roaming, but they weren't able to do that before Saigon really started grouping and starting to take advantage of this AoE comp they've got.
And as we said, 𝘀𝗃_Buffalo, they were trading gold, but they had a lot of gold that they were able to secure. Engage comes through. However, Eddie's just locked down. He's forced to run. He'll take another auto, taken down super low. Ace in the hole comes through, but now the engager 4v3. 𝘁𝗃's got a 4 teleport coming down as well. Shogun super low. Wind becomes lightning. 𝘀𝗃_Buffalo are starting to fall. BJ is going to be the focus for the side of Team Secret as Nagia will get taken down. 𝘀𝗃 picking up the kill, and it is a 2v1 and a 3v1. Fights on all ends. 𝘀NK being run down by 𝘀𝗃 as 𝘁𝗏 tries to find something onto 𝘂𝗏. 𝘀NK is going to be able to take the blast cone as BJ still on the chase. 𝘁𝗏's just 1v3 and he doesn't even care. He'll tag the Sonic Wave. He allows 𝘀NK out as a Shadow Surge lands onto BJ. Does he look to go in? No. BJ has 𝘀𝗃 for protection.
I was so excited. I thought 𝘁𝗏 was going to be able to clean up 3 full members on the likes of the Gnar, but it's not going to happen. This is a fight that Saigon, I think, ends up losing in the end, in the grand scheme of things. I think they ended up going down 2 kills to 3 kills, something along those lines. But man, 1 item worth of completed, one item's worth of damage across the board, they go completely nuts in this fight. You can see Shogun super close to killing off Eddie just to begin things, and there's multiple members. 4 members are here already for Team Secret before the fight begins. 𝘁𝗃 once again finds himself in a rough position and immediately brought down as Shogun. They're down 2 members before the fight even really starts. 𝘁𝗏 helps carry, and the combination, I don't know how BJ ends up living this other than the fact that he has the Gore Drinker that heals him, and 𝘀𝗏's able to chase off 𝘀NK as everybody else goes to 𝘁𝗏. This is just classic miscommunication. Team Secret need to pick a target and stick to it, because across the board it was a really bad place to be for everybody. That was the ultimate. It was so close to setting up 3-person kill if he's able to snag Eddie and 𝘁𝗃 in the same W. I think honestly he pulls a triple kill right there, and this fight goes completely in Saigon's favor.
Well, Eddie was forced to cleanse flash from the ult, so it's super unlucky from 𝘁𝗏 as we do have a pause. Oh, just when this game was starting to get super hype. Honestly, it's kind of crazy how this game has been so far.
It's been far more exciting than normal, just because it seems like we're getting far more like 5-on-5 engagements from the beginning of the game, right? It's kind of crazy to think that that's how this game is played out. Although Saigon's intention behind drafting a comp like this is going to usually be something like trying to take 5-on-5s. They aren't quite at the damage breakpoint they need to really just kind of run things quite yet. Again, the Victor on 1 additional item, the Jinx on 1 additional item, that fight looks way different. Things look completely different for them. The other big thing we're noticing in this game, 𝘁𝗃's had pretty good performances despite his team not having the greatest of success. I still maintain that 𝘁𝗃's up there in terms of supports here in the VCS, has been caught out before fights have started. I'd like to see that stop, because 𝘁𝗏s have had really solid ways to set up fights over the course of the entirety of the VCS. Every time we see a 𝘁𝗏, usually it's finding these massive effects, and so far 𝘁𝗃 has just kind of been silenced on that regard.
But we are heading back game, and it is to see BJ securing the Rift Herald, the second Rift Herald of the game for 𝘀𝗃_Buffalo as well. And it's going to be dropped towards this top side of the tower going their way.
Setting up for 𝘁𝗏 to do a little bit more work in the side lane, because again, the Renekton has the Gore Drinker, but we're setting up for 𝘁𝗏 to be able to kind of push on the side lane in more advantageous situation, as well as getting one of your main team fight kind of initiators in the right position. I want to point this out too. How about the boy 𝘀𝗏? 150 CS at 15 minutes. He's nearing 10 CS per minute. This is what happens when you don't put him on Galio and have him roam 5 times in the first 10 minutes of the game. I'm just saying, like...
enough. A point taken, point received, and a point somewhat proved as well. 𝘀𝗀 with an average CS of 6.9 over the course of the game. Usually finds himself trailing by 17 CS at 15 minutes. This time, he's 40 CS ahead at 16 minutes, which is very, very impressive for 𝘀𝗀. So I'm glad he's having this turnaround in form.
We've been waiting to try to see what kind of the mold is for Saigon over the course of the split. We had the same problem with Team Secret, and Team Secret ended up falling into this strategy of, okay, DMK is going to do a bunch of work early, 𝘀𝗏 is going to be able to assist in this process, and their lanes have to kind of be in a decently positive state, and if they are, all of a sudden their games look incredible. This is what happened against Cerberus, where like all of their lanes were having some success, DNK was getting active early, and things were looking great for them. This is a game where Saigon 𝘀𝗀, their game plan was kind of more stally, but then they combine all of their efforts into one solid component and take big fights instead of looking for little pick-off skirmishes. It's not Twisted Fate ulting into 3 members, it is 5 members coming together as one whole cohesive unit, where Saigon is kind of relying on their earlier game team fighting. And again, the power is not quite there, but they clearly look more comfortable, and it's causing Team Secret not to have the same kind of landing phase, not for DNK to allow for this earlier game that he's really been exploiting the majority of the split.
Saigon 𝘀𝗀 going to be able to force Team Secret out of the river, but crucially, DNK able to break the crown of the Shattered Queen from 𝘀𝗀, so it is well and truly shattered now, and that might be a potential way for Team Secret to win this fight. Does DNK look to go in? No, the Drake will be secured. It is a Hextech Rift, a Hextech Drake going the way of Saigon 𝘀𝗀.
And they're not even able to break a tower here. I think 𝘀𝗀 was going to try to shove up and just siege on this tower to the best of his ability to try to pull some plating for the for a turret plate, my apologies, on the likes of this Caitlyn. But unfortunately, he's just not going to be able to do that because they were ready on the return back. Shogun wasn't needed really for the Dragon. Side lanes being handled by 𝘀𝗀. Just time and time again, Saigon seemed to be on top of things a lot better than they normally are inside of a series like this. And some of the early trip ups, which were like BeanJ getting teleported on, 𝘀𝗀 getting ganked a handful of times, all of that's slowly being silenced as this gold starts to trickle in. The Kraken Slayer is completed, Crown and what looks to be what is the Cosmic Drive are going to be completed for the victor soon enough, and all of a sudden these team fighters are looking just monstrous. There's nothing that you can do to really contest this if you don't have the gold necessary, and all of a sudden Renekton starts to fall off, Caitlyn starts to get into the second item, a little bit of power trough in the midst of the game, and this team fighting just doesn't look to have the same kind of potency that Saigon does, especially with their Dragon lead to be able to force around what will be Baron and then 3rd, 4th Dragon, that type of area.
And this is something that I think we've seen a fair bit from the likes of Team Secret and Team Flash's Secret will finally be able to pick up a tower. And feel free to disagree with me on this point, Rebel. I feel like with Team Secret and Team Flash, so often we see them coming out of the early game, the first 10, 15 minutes, coming out on top and looking, okay, maybe they can win this. But then it's that mid-game where we start to see the random skirmishes, some of the fights where they just look shaky and some of the decision-making just seems to be a little off. And again, we kind of saw that in this game. First 5 minutes went really well for Team Secret, but Saigon 𝘀𝗀 have just outplayed them, out-macroed them from that point and find themselves 2,000 gold ahead at nearly 20 minutes.
I think Team Secret hasn't had the same kind of issue since 𝘀𝗏 has been about, mostly because their early game has been a bit more hectic with DNK and 𝘀𝗏 kind of being out and about and being as active as they can to try to keep these lanes in a positive position. I think that's a really important aspect of it. But you're right, where these teams really have started to kind of fall to pieces has been like the grand scope macro decision making that these teams have just kind of been lacking from time to time, especially Flash, but Secret is not just completely victimless here.
Oh, 3-man Magnet Storm coming through. It's going to slow quite a few members off the side of Team Secret. Nikita will burn the dominant. 𝘀𝗏 will get taken down. 1 kill going the way of Saigon 𝘀𝗀. I thought it was Nikita who was going to fall, but it ends up being the support. All the while, 𝘀𝗀 and Shogun just going to be able to pick up the outer tower in the bottom lane. Teleport from 𝘀𝗀 to be able to answer 𝘀𝗀, who will split, pushing on the top side of the map.
They're doing a really good job not only getting safe gold by just roaming around as a death squad of 5 members because you can't attack into it, but they're also denying gold. Again, the denial of 𝘀𝗏 onto the play. Okay, they're making the response play right now.
I'm not sure who's that teleporting in. I think it's 𝘀𝗀 and 𝘀𝗏. Yes, they are both coming in. Shadow Surge beautifully sidestepped. DNK trying to get onto 𝘀𝗀. Ace and the hole comes through. Sonic Wave has landed. Resonating Strike is able to pick up the kill. Now 𝘀𝗏 being run down is going to be 2 members down for the side of Saigon 𝘀𝗀. 2 for nothing. Team Secret finally win a fight.
The warp gate saving at the last second, 𝘁𝗀 able to sneak out with that was actually a pretty sexy move right there. Unfortunate. I actually loved what 𝘁𝗀xe did because he was trying to deny 𝘁𝗀 from being able to have access onto 𝘁𝗀 after that play had come through. As it ends up being, I think it was 2 bottom towers and 1 kill over to the side of the opposite side, but 𝘁𝗀 steps way too far in. The decision making just not there on that one. As the rest of his team is kind of behind, but 𝘁𝗀 and Shogun are able to kind of focus down damage. He's right back onto the 𝘁𝗀.
Mega Death Rocket takes 𝘁𝗀 low, flash over the wall. Shogun wants to join in, and 𝘁𝗀 say, hey, you teleported for a play? It's our turn to teleport in. 𝘁𝗀 just going to run down Eddie.
Oh,
𝘁𝗀 is in mini-nar, so technically he's an ADC as well. He gets the hyper procs, and 𝘁𝗀 punished Team Secret for being overly aggressive, having won a very small fight.
Really nice though, because again, it sets up not only a 5,000 gold lead, I guess 4,500 gold lead at this point, but also they're going to Baron. They have the consistent damage to do this. The problem is Gnar is nowhere near this, so the hyper procs are a big portion of the damage that you can do to this in the early game, and then only just now is Shogun showing up. But they've got a decent vision line. You can see that they warded the shallow parts of the jungle. They'd be able to bail from this relatively quickly. The only thing that could throw them for a loop is maybe this warp gate behind them. That's something to at least pay attention to, but it's way too little too late. Nobody's able to contest this as Saigon capitalize on that one fight on the bottom side of the map and transform it into a Baron. One problem is next 15 seconds, Dragon is going to be coming up. We're going to get this replay where 𝘁𝗀 kind of went too far, caught himself on the 𝘁𝗀 snag, unfortunately, who is sitting on the blue buff. As what is probably happening right now on the map is a little bit more important, which is the Dragon take that's going to be coming out from the likes of Team Secret, who should be able to equalize that count. But again, the gold advantage gained by Saigon from the combination of this play and the transition into Baron buff is just not to be understated at all. Their team fighting coming together entirely too easily right now, as Team Secret just seems to have no response to these really good group ups from the likes of Saigon.
And it's just everyone from Team Secret dying. You know, first the Lee gets too aggressive, falls as here is the Drake fight, 4,000 HP. 𝘁𝗀 already going in, it's going to be a 2-man magnet. Storm as Eddie forced to flash out as well, drop the tilt over Peacemaker, but does absolutely no damage. 𝘁𝗀 burning a decent blast comes in. 𝘁𝗀's just on to Eddie. Eddie trying his best to kite back, trying to dish out the autos, but he just can't get close enough, and 𝘁𝗀 are going to win the fight. They go on to park it, they find the 4th. 𝘁𝗀 on the chase, flashes forward, not going to be able to find the boomerang. Wants to find the slows, wants to find the hyperprocs. He's going in, not going to be able to land it as the tower shots do come through. The Drake will not be picked up. Froggy's just going to push it in the bottom lane because 𝘁𝗀, they want to get the inhibitor towers, they want to get the inhibitors.
Grab the inhibitor here, I think, in the mid lane. That's what their intention is. And then the bottom side was pushed by 𝘀𝗀xe with the intention of snagging the inhibitor tower. I like the idea of just turning around and going back for the dragon a little bit sooner than this. Maybe just tagging the inhibitor tower, shoving up bot wave, and then immediately turning around for the dragon, because this still might get traded over. How in the world did Team Secret not take that? They had 10-second timer where Saigon was leaving from the Baron pit. They had the pressure to be there. They could have started that up, easily gotten control of the river, but somehow Saigon were able to muscle their way in and get onto the dragon fast enough. Within only 15 seconds, the Baron had to be taken, backs had to be completed, they had to buy, and they had to get their way into the river. And I want to pay attention really quickly to 𝘁𝗀, who, look at his access to Shogun this entire fight. He kicks 𝘀𝗀xe in the middle of the fight. That's great. Does nothing to Shogun, just gets auto-attacked to death. The Lee Sin accomplished very little in this fight. All it did was put 𝘀𝗀xe in a slightly better position to put damage down into 𝘁𝗀xe, into Eddie, and all these members. Did burn the stopwatch, I think, over the course of everything, but it just did nothing over the entirety of the fight. Really unfortunate that effectively neither side of that fight ended up turning out the way that Team Secret really wanted it to. And now sitting down, what is 8,500 gold? The Dragon is going to be set up for soul points, and a Hex Rift is going to be another filthy, disgusting combination with all of this AoE damage over the course of the fight. Saigon are just kind of running away with this one.
You mentioned the Hex Rift. I wonder if they use the Hex Gates to be able to get that to the
I'm curious about that too.
It would explain something, because I think that could cut down, you know, a good 5 seconds of travel time from base to the Drake, maybe more.
You think that still wouldn't be enough for Team Secret to just not be able to be on the Dragon, since they were literally at the Baron buff still with 15 seconds left until it. So again, they would have had to go through a Baron empowered recall, they would have had to buy items, then they would have had to run out of their base and then teleport into the river, and then walk into the river to compete with Team Secret before any of that came through. Maybe Team Secret just gave them too much respect and was hoping to set up some semblance of a really good team fight, and that's why they kind of let them into the river, but you can see what it netted them, because right now they're just getting bullied off of their bottom lane tower.
The engage comes through. That's a good floss. 𝗀𝗀 taken down low. 𝘁𝗲 under the tower is going to jump on out to safety. Shadow Surge will be tanked by 𝘁𝗏 as 𝘂𝗏 super low. In goes 𝘁𝗏, but 𝘁𝗏 and the side of 𝘁𝗏 just going to turn this one around. 𝘁𝗏 trying to get into the backline, trying to kill 𝘁𝗏, trying to kill 𝘂𝗏. In comes 𝑑NK as well. There are so many stopwatches. Oh, boom! 2 members down, courtesy of the 𝘁𝗏. Eddie now running down the members of 𝘁𝗏, going to pick up a huge shutdown from 𝘂𝗏. 𝘁𝗏, I don't think he can, and it will be 3 kills for 2 with Team Secret coming out on top.
Nice fight contest. It was actually looking really rough for Team Secret there because they lost a good amount of health and a couple of members before 𝘁𝗏 made an entrance that I thought was really going to cost them a fair amount over the course of that fight. But they're able to take it outside of their inhibitor tower. They're able to somehow push back Saigon despite being down a significant chunk of gold, bringing down 𝘂𝗏, bringing down 𝗀𝗀, separating him from the fight. I want to see how all of this kind of played out because we're looking at the siege potential. 𝘂𝗏 got aggressed on by like 3 people. It started with like 𝘁𝗀 trying to make some semblance of a push. 𝘁𝗲 had a decent kind of shove underneath the tower, and then you can see there's more members that try this. 𝘁𝗏 eventually finds his way into this one, and it is 𝘁𝗏 in the end that actually gets in and disrupts so much. This Renekton's so valuable because you can see the very limited health bars that come out. 𝘁𝗏 gets shoved back. 𝘂𝗏 has to go into Zhonya's just to not die to that initial engage of Renekton. And again, Froggy's build right now is not really designed for pure damage output. A lot of it is utility between the Cosmic Drive and the Crown of the Shattered Queen, and that means that he can't just outright full carry through an entire squad yet. When the damage starts to come in on 3rd, 4th item, that kind of thing, unless he went for Zhonya's, that means that fight starts to be able to be carried by the victor on his own without needing 𝘂𝗏.
That Mistral Bolt from 𝘁𝗏 to find 2 members of 𝘁𝗏, the only 2 who, or 2 of the 3 who ended up dying from the Buffalo. And maybe 𝘁𝗏 can still have an influence in this game. Has one large rod. 𝘁𝗏 potentially looking for the flank, not going to be able to land a Sonic Wave as the final inner tower of Team Secret will fall. 𝘁𝗏 still have all of their towers standing. The 𝘁𝗏 prepare for this Baron in 18 seconds time.
They've got the push in mid lane with the mid inhibitor down. 𝘁𝗏 also has a perfect Narbar set up for what will be a fight potentially to contest. He's going to have to sit there and probably just wait for his Narbar to go down a little bit, throw a boomerang at the Baron to sustain it, but it's going to be in a perfect place in which, there is no way that Team Secret's going to be able to walk in without 𝘁𝗏 being able to gnaw out. Look at that. It's 99% right now. He's walking behind the pit, ready to get going, ready to teleport behind this team. You can see the residual vision's going to catch them on their way in. 𝘁𝗏 can either jump over this wall or he can go for something. You can see him gnawing out right now. He's waiting for it. 𝘁𝗀's right here. He catches him in the act.
He catches him in the act, but look at the fight in the Baron pit. 𝘁𝗏 low, but 1 is already down for Team Secret. 𝘁𝗏 has a fallen 𝘁𝗏 pushing on to 𝘁𝗏. 𝘁𝗏 has died. 𝘁𝗏 with the personal space is going to be able to find a 4-man spear, but that is all almost able to get the kill onto 𝘂𝗏 as 𝘁𝗏 on the run. 2 kills for the side of 𝘁𝗏, 2 for 1, but both junglers still standing.
The number of times in which 𝘁𝗏 has positioned himself to be such a massive difference maker inside of these fights for the likes of Team Secret, only to be caught out by a member of 𝘁𝗏 and having his influence really be restricted beyond belief, has actually done so much against Team Secret during the course of this one. Again, the top of the fight is all 𝘁𝗏, and I was expecting the Gnar to have much more of an impact. If he's in the middle of the pit right now, he does so much with this Gnar ultimate, but it just doesn't matter. 𝘁𝗏 is enough to actually frontline and be the engagement, and yes, he goes down, but then you have the damage to be able to turn, and there is no 𝘁𝗀 to find a nice kick. There's no playmaking potential from the Lee Sin because he's taken out of the fight. So it is just a Jinx and a Victor turning out of a pit and being able to run you down as 𝘁𝗀. He just gets run down from the teleportation. The warp gate helps get in the side of Saigon. Is now, they're just going to be able to pick up the dragon with ease. They're up 10,000 gold. They're waiting to just kind of pencil this one in as a W.
There was a small silver lining for the side of Team Secret to come back into this game. They were starting to look good in fights, but now 𝘁𝗏, they have a free Hextech Soul, and it's going to be so difficult for Team Secret to find a way back into this game. 11,000 gold behind, and 𝘁𝗏 pushing in the bottom lane. They've got the Baron empowered minions crashing forward as well.
𝘁𝗏 called the bluff of Team Secret, which was really nice. The early game had to be dominated from 𝘁𝗀. He said, okay, 𝘁𝗀, 𝘂𝗏, 𝘁𝗏, get things done. Go, take over the map, do what you want. 𝘁𝗀 really wasn't super duper active to begin the game. They allowed for pressure into 𝘁𝗏 and into some of these other lanes. They took it a little bit more slowly and started playing for a 5-on-5, and it actually led to very good results that ended up winning things.
That a surge onto
What
𝘀𝗀𝗃,
is
and they
happening?
kill the ADC. No, they cannot. 𝘁𝗃𝗃 will come out of stasis, and 𝘁𝗃𝗃 will die. 𝘀𝗰𝗵𝗶𝗹𝗀, 5 members standing. Team Secret, just a measly 3. 5v3. I think I have a feeling I know how this one ends, Rebel, and it's going to be ending with 𝘀𝗰𝗵𝗶𝗹𝗀 taking down the final 2 Nexus towers. In comes the engage from 𝘁𝗃𝗃. 𝘁𝗃𝗃 will fall. No, actually has a stopwatch to keep himself alive. 𝘀𝗀 will get popped. The GA coming into effect. Nagi on the run on a sliver of HP will die. 𝘁𝗃 making sure that this one is an ace. Well, 𝘂𝗏 still alive. Maybe there's one more to come for 𝘀𝗰𝗵𝗶𝗹𝗀. Never mind. They'll just take the game, and they will take game 1.
What a look from Saigon. Again, at the beginning of the split, and you think about every champion that has been picked for 𝘀𝗏𝗃 between the Twisted Fate, the Galio, everything that just kind of makes him roam out and about in his most popular champion pool, and they starting to get into the moment of, okay, maybe we leave him in lane. Maybe we just absorb some of the pressure in the beginning. Maybe we have lanes that do better on their own to be able to tackle some of the early game without having to just necessarily teleport, warp, skirmish, roam, whatever it is that they need in order to kind of bridge that gap from the early game into the mid game. And you can see they can rely on 𝘀𝗏𝗃 and Shogun to do a lot of heavy lifting in 5-on-5s when they start them early. I still want to see Team Secret, I don't think, pulled full throttle on the early game, and I think they desperately needed to. And so game number 2, I kind of want to see them coming out swinging much faster out of the gate just as soon as possible, get DNK and get 𝘂𝗏 just as fast into the game as they can. But what a game design here from the side of Saigon, expecting that, being able to absorb it really easily.
Well, maybe we will be seeing more aggression from Team Secret in the early stages of the game. We're going to jump on into a short break, and when we return, we'll be getting our analyst thoughts on game 1 of this series. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a short bit. Welcome back, folks. Game 1 of our series kind of went as expected. 𝘀𝗰𝗵𝗶𝗹𝗀 taking the win over Team Secret, but who cares about what I think? I care about what 𝘀𝗀𝗃 and Tim thinks. Tim, I'm going to go to you first. Good performance from 𝘀𝗰𝗵𝗶𝗹𝗀, or maybe Team Secret lacking a little?
No, I think it was a good performance from 𝘀𝗰𝗵𝗶𝗹𝗀. They played it well. I think they had a strong draft, and for once, the good draft wins, which I really like to see. And then they just executed. I mean, they had the outscaling comp, and like the onus was on Team Secret. They had to force early, and 𝘀𝗰𝗵𝗶𝗹𝗀, they just chilled it out. They took the bigger skirmishes and fights in the mid game, and they just won them and played really nicely.
Yeah, it was a good performance from 𝘀𝗰𝗵𝗶𝗹𝗀. We'll see whether they can do it again. 𝘀𝗀𝗃, one of the things that Rebel was talking about was the fact that maybe we could have seen a bit more early aggression from DNK to try to generate some early leads. But, well, Team Secret kind of struggled after about 6-7 minutes into that game.
They surely did, but they actually had a decent start. I mean, they went 3-0 up in kills. Nagia was 1v2 destroying up top lane there. So there was like some window where they could have maybe broken in, but they kind of didn't. And I think DNK is to some extent at fault there, I would say, because, I mean, usually we look at him as a carry for Team Secret, but this time he didn't really achieve anything in this game. Maybe he should have put more focus into the mid lane, because, which is also very ironic, I think we might live in the parallel universe where 𝘀𝗀𝗃 is like the best farmer on the whole Summoner Swift, because he was putting on numbers there in the mid lane, and really gotta give credit
Always
to him
has
there.
been.
And yeah, 𝘀𝗀𝗃 was really showing up.
Rebel trying to transcend into our casting, into our analyst booth. Rebel, stick to the casting, all right? We don't want to hear your thoughts until we're into a game. But I had a point. Oh yeah, I was going to say, essentially with the Nagia thing, he did have that 1v2, but in fairness, he was almost 30 CS down on 𝘁𝗃𝗃 at that point in the game. So he was struggling in the farming department. Tim, what do you think should be changed for Team Secret heading into this game from a drafting perspective?
I think from a drafting perspective, either if you want to play this early game style, either you have to start playing really, really, really aggressive and snowball, because we've seen a lot of snowballs in the VCS. It can happen. On the other hand, if you're not going for that, if you're if you can't snowball, which I think after game 1 is also to be assumed, then just match the scaling. I mean, you probably can't match Victor and 𝘀𝗃𝗃, but there are champions who at least can keep up much longer and give you much bigger time windows to play the game.
Okay. Well, we are getting ready to jump on in to picks and bans. 𝘀𝗀𝗃. The Nocturne so far has been played once in the winter split, and it was 𝘁𝗀. We saw 𝘊𝗀𝗋𝗀𝗀 banning it away in game 1. Do you think there's a chance it slips through in game 2?
I think it's very unlikely. There's a slight chance, of course, that maybe I think it now I would assume that Team Secret takes red side because red side seems to be the stronger side on this current patch because you can do just more with the counter picks than you can do with a first pick. Because Caitlyn 𝘁𝗀 usually is just traded between the teams. But I think, yeah, as we now see, Secret is indeed on the red side, and I assume the Nocturne to be banned, but actually it is 𝘀𝗰𝗵𝗋𝗀 who bans it themselves as their first pick, their first ban on the blue side. So yeah, no chance we see the Nocturne this game, sadly enough. And this, of course, just again leaves open the bot lane picks. And I also want to see the approach that Coach Tim just addressed, which would be to match the scaling. Since let's be honest, Team Secret, you can force something early, but you couldn't force enough. So you are just putting yourself on the timer, and against a better team, that is not a very likely way to win the game.
The question now is with the Vex. In the last game, it was the first pick for 𝘁𝗀𝗋, and 𝘀𝗀𝗋 can play the champion as well, so they could look for it, but it's going to be the 𝘁𝗀. And as an answer, I expect the Caitlyn. But 𝘁𝗀 already for 𝘊𝗀𝗋𝗋𝗀 already means that you probably have the best scaling AD carry in the game, and you already outscale the enemy team comp.
𝘀𝗀𝗰𝗋𝗀𝗀 so, and I think we just now will, of course, see the Caitlyn answer on the side from Team Secret, unless they just go for a completely different plan, which I wouldn't expect. I mean Caitlyn 𝘁𝗀, yeah, Twitch. Yeah, I mean Twitch. I mean, it's also.
I mean, if you want to match scaling, you have to go Twitch, don't you? Like,
yeah, Caitlyn should be fine. I mean, she's with the mid game dip, she's not really suited up for the mid game that well, where VCS tends to skirmish a lot, but the Caitlyn would be fine in the late game. But they are going for the 𝘁𝗀𝗃𝗃, so they just go the completely opposite approach, I would assume, which would be to just completely smash the early game. And this can work out for them, but just now they tried something similar, maybe a little bit of a half-assed way, and this is why it didn't work out. And now they also go for 𝘁𝗀𝗃 and 𝘁, and yeah. The VCS English broadcast abandoned Team Secret just now. They only have 𝘁𝗁𝗃 left now.
We've seen this 𝘁 time and time again, and it's interesting to see Eddie going back to it. To be honest, I don't really mind it now because we're not seeing 𝘁 and Misfortune every single game, so I'm quite appreciative of the fact that we've got a 𝘁 now.
I think the 𝘁 can fit well because it gives you a lot of early game power, a lot of push. It's a laner that can play both strong and weak side. And on the other hand, he does scale pretty well. The only thing he doesn't really scale against is tanks, of course, but usually against bruisers, against backliners, you do have a lot of damage. Not the consistent DPS, of course, of a 𝘁𝗀, but a lot of burst damage and a lot of supportive damage to your Syndra, so it's very easy to take out one target. And now 𝘁𝗀𝗃 coming in together with the 𝘁𝗃𝗃 as a flex pick for both mid lane and support.
And it's a 𝘁𝗃𝗃 again. And also our another friend 𝘀𝗀𝗃 is coming in. With the 𝘁𝗃𝗃, I actually assume that 𝘀𝗀𝗃 will pick it up because 𝘀𝗀𝗃, I mean, we know him as a guy who likes to sack lane, just play for his side lane, go for these skirmishes. And I think it can actually work out well because they also pair it with the 𝘁𝗀𝗃. And 𝘁𝗀𝗃 𝘁𝗃, we know it from earlier seasons of LPL. It's just very strong engage, and also especially against the 𝘁. You cannot really do much against it. As soon as the 𝘁𝗃 is somehow in its vicinity, the 𝘁 has to basically run for the hills, maybe use his Gale Force, maybe even has to flash out of the Cataclysm to even have a chance to escape it, because the hero's entrance will follow up with it, and this will be very tough for 𝘁 to deal with. So 𝘁 𝘀𝗀𝗃 is locked in on the side of Team Secret, which is, of course, aside from the level 1, a very decent bot lane combination. And also now that I think of it, maybe even level 1, because 𝘁 just does so much with someone who can enable his deadly flourish snare ability, and that makes it very hard for 𝘁𝗀𝗋 to play these early skirmishes or early laning phase in general.
Yes, I mean, a name. Say that you're commentating VCS without telling me that you're commentating VCS. I think 𝘀𝗀𝗃 𝘁 is definitely something that tells you a lot about what is going on. 𝘁𝗃𝗃 overall, by the way, as a support, does work well into 𝘀𝗀𝗃. So if they see maybe a better mid lane pick for them, it is still very much a possibility. 𝘁𝗃𝗃 very easy to cancel the 𝘀𝗀𝗃 combo with both your E and your W if you play it right. So and that is always an option. I'm expecting that we see jungle pick here now for DNK, but they're hovering the Jace, and with Cannon and a lot of other top laners banned, it is one of the priority top laners that so often has been banned in the second rotation.
Yeah, they just assumed that there's just no good top lane left, and that's why they pick up the J.CS, because otherwise they would fear that J.CS gets picked on the other side of 𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗀, and they wouldn't have a counter left. So now it's the question, of course, what would 𝘁𝗀𝗃 play now? I mean, now it's to be open, but it's not good against the J.CS, really. He could actually play with Necton maybe now to kind of have like a stabilizing match. Maybe Wukong should be good. This is a good call. Maybe he also just goes for top lane Gragas again, and with the Leona pick, we just not see that 𝘀𝑎𝑟 is indeed going mid lane. As you just said, I would have also not hated it as a support, as it's good against the Alistar. But would there really be a good pick for 𝘀𝑐𝗰𝗃 left is the question. He could maybe play a Victor or a 𝘁𝗃𝗃, but I don't really see 𝘀𝑐𝗃 as a 𝘁𝗃𝗃 player, so better not to pick. And it will be 𝘂𝑎𝑟𝑖 for 𝘁𝗃𝗃. What an exciting pick.
Okay, I mean, 𝘂𝑎𝑟𝑖 is definitely an exciting pick. I've seen a fair bit of 𝘂𝑎𝑟𝑖 top lane, because the team I was casting for the past few months, they had an 𝘂𝑎𝑟𝑖 top lane main, so I got to see a fair bit of the champion, and it is a very strong weak side champion. It's near impossible to really gank her because of her shroud, and especially Olaf, of course, can't really do anything against her once she's going into that shroud. Anyone who want to expect Jace to have the priority, to have the pressure, his range advantage, of course, very strong. But usually with 𝘂𝑎𝑟𝑖 lanes, the enemy has to be very scared on level 6, because that's when 𝘂𝑎𝑟𝑖 spikes. That's when she tries to go for all-ins and just try to kill you outright.
And I have a very mixed opinion on this draft on the side of Team Secret. I mean, they have the winning lanes with the Olaf, but they also have to win those lanes, because if not, just as you said, the all-in on level 6 is deadly for the 𝘂𝑎𝑟𝑖. Also, Syndra, not really the best scaling champion, and Jhin, we have talked about it countless times, how he falls off as a DPS carry. So I'm kind of worried for Team Secret here.
Something I want to bring up as well is, so often we criticize the 𝘀𝑎𝑟 pickups as a solo source of AP, but that's not the case right now, is it, Tim? Because we've got the 𝘂𝑎𝑟𝑖, and I was going to suggest actually if we'd see a Mordekaiser, but I love the fact that 𝘁𝗃𝗃 is A, on an AP champion, and 1 on a very skill-expressive champion.
Yeah, to see a good 𝘂𝑎𝑟𝑖 play in the game is always... I mean, it's great, and I hope that he has a good performance on the champion. I think overall, looking at both team comps, I think both team comps are very solid. I think both team comps have a very clear goal. And Team Secret, I think in a mid game is a bit more well-rounded. I think that especially like Olaf playing into stuff like 𝘀𝑎𝑟 and Leona usually is very much fine. But in the later stages, of course, Jinx as a solo carry with a lot of support can take over the game.
Okay, so 𝘀𝗃𝗃, Tim, just final thoughts on the draft, because 𝘀𝗃𝗃, I know you gave somewhat of your thoughts of the draft. I think you said 𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗀, you slightly prefer their comp.
Yeah, I do. I mean, if both teams would be like Dumb and EG, I think the team comp from Team Secret would win here, but both teams aren't that clean, we know that, so I think 𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝗀 takes it in the mid game again.
Tim?
I have to agree with my analyst here.
Okay, well, Tim, 𝘀𝗃𝗃, thank you very much for your thoughts. We're going to jump in and get the words of Rebel. Now, here's the thing with Rebel. In the previous game, he talked about the fact that 𝘀𝑒 was playing Victor and people would be playing around him, and the fact that he wouldn't have to roam 10 times in the first 10 minutes and could have a CS lead. So I'm guessing, Rebel, you're not very happy with this 𝘀𝑎𝑟 pickup for 𝘀𝑒.
You got it. They've tried this strategy, right? With the Victor. They did it with a couple of other champions just last week with Flash. It was doing good. Like, it was doing fine. So to change that up and to go back to what is effectively like your tried and true, like, okay, let's ruin his CS, let's go to 5 CS per minute 𝘀𝑒 and just see if we can get some of the early game to stick, is a little disheartening. Although I'm really hard pressed to go against a composition which includes a 𝘁𝗃, 𝘂𝑎𝑟𝑖. When you think about 𝘂𝑎𝑟𝑖 in the VCS, 𝘁𝗃 is the 𝘂𝑎𝑟𝑖 in the VCS. He's the best one by a substantial margin. And now, I mean, they're going to get a solid flank here. They're going to be able to potentially collapse 3 members into this play all together. It seems like DNK got a little bit big for his britches. They were trying to go for some sort of cheeky invade, but 𝘁𝗀 is going to be able to snag that one away from DNK. Fortunately, the lost health actually, I think, ends up helping the Olaf more than it ends up hurting him, because it wasn't quite enough to actually threaten losing that on any given camp. It's just going to help his clear speed a little bit. But again, a thwarted early kind of play off the back of 𝘁𝗃 being in the right position to see them on the invade.
Now, 𝘁𝗃 trying to get towards the waves, able to sidestep a shock blast, and that always gives you a little bit of a confidence heading into a lane matchup. One particular interaction that I do want to bring up is this jungle matchup between the Olaf and the Jarvan, because my understanding has always been, if you want to counter Olaf, you pick a Jarvan, not because you can CC him, because you can't CC an Olaf, but because you can put down the Cataclysm, and then, well, an Olaf can't run through a Cataclysm wall. So I was quite surprised that the Olaf got picked into this J4.
The intent behind it, I think, has to be that, number one, if you lock it in Cataclysm, you're kind of stuck in the Cataclysm if you use your EQ to get too close. And the alternative is that you get on top of him with Cataclysm and then have to EQ out, and all of a sudden your Cataclysm and your full kit are burnt on the 𝘀𝗻 in exchange for just kind of pinching the 𝘀𝗀 out of the initial part of the fight where the Ragnarok is going to be down. But that's also when the likes of the 𝘀𝗀 is most vulnerable. So there's trading potential off and on here, but the 𝘀𝗀 is just going to be able to out 1v1 the likes of the 𝘀𝗻. It's one of the very few champions who's capable of doing exactly that, which is being able to take a one-on-one against the type of champion that 𝘀𝗻 is in the early game, even with an EQ. Feels like with the hatchets, with the lifesteal that is enhanced, with the E, everything that comes together for the 𝘀𝗀, it's really easy to just fight for anything you want. And so it's another example of an 𝘀𝗀 who's coming out here inside of this game and trying to put on pressure as fast as possible against the likes of his jungler, where 𝘁𝗀 is not going to be able to have the same kind of presence in the earlier stages. And you can see they're already leveraging that. They use 𝘁𝗀𝗀's push against the likes of the 𝘀𝗀𝗄 early to get him a double crab. That's not that valuable on 1123 anymore, but it is at least something to hang your hat on. It likely actually ends up meaning, especially with DNK having skipped the red buff, that it's going to be at least a timing here for 𝘁𝗀 to potentially take a back timer or look for a gank while those camps are actually caught up by the likes of DNK. As 𝘁𝗀 is going to poke his head and he's going to pop this, he's not going to see anything. Oh, actually, is he looking for a gank? Oh, he just avoided that vision. 𝘁𝗀, you're a Chad.
Smart from 𝘁𝗀, and 𝘁𝗀 is thinking there's no way for 𝘁𝗀 to have got that. As we're going to look towards the bottom lane instead. VC coming down onto 𝘁𝗀, takes a lot of damage, the Ignite ticking down, and the final auto will not be enough for Shogun to be able to secure the kill. Meanwhile, 𝘁𝗀 is under his tower. Could 𝘁𝗀 look for a dive? There is no mana on the Syndra, but there is a full health bar. And after all of that, sadly for 𝘁𝗀, his beautiful pathing is going to amount to nothing, and he's going to be forced to reset.
Really unfortunate, because it also, I mean, DNK is already halfway through his second clear. He's going to get the Wolf camp respawn, and you can see that right now, that the Chrom's going to respawn, and he's going to back and have an absurd start to this clear speed, likely going to have the Iron Spike to be able to start into the second clear with, 𝘁𝗀 with nothing to show for it in terms of the immediate gank. Had that worked out, things would have been very different. I thought they were really just going to go ham and press for it like a flash into an E to at least force out 𝘁𝗀's flash, and then maybe look for an EQ on the backside, where a taunt and a Q follow up from the likes of the 𝘀𝗀𝗄. But none of that comes to fruition. I don't know if they just got scared off because they were worried about 𝘁𝗀's E being able to throw all this disruption, or not knowing where DNK was going to be. There's so much kind of variable here that I suppose 𝘁𝗀𝗁 didn't really account for.
𝘁𝗀 actually using his Predator boots there, and wasn't really able to get anything of it. Meanwhile, in the top lane, 𝘁𝗁 had been getting poked out rather substantially by Negia, but despite all of that, he finds himself trailing by just 10 CS. So a decent start to the lane for 𝘁𝗁, it has to be said.
And again, this is a champion that you have to put a bunch, or a player you have to put a bunch of faith into when he's on a tried and true champion like this. When I'd first stepped in, again, Mordekaiser was really popular. I know Kennen was really popular. Wukong was really popular. But when it came to the 𝘁𝗁 pick specifically, this is where we really saw 𝘁𝗁 shine. This was the first opportunity I had ever had to watch him really kind of flex his true mechanical muscles. And this champion is kind of the only champion he really shows it every single time he's on it. The performances he has, actually, I went back and watched tape to confirm this. It reminds me so much of the way that Keen plays the 𝘁𝗁 pick, where it feels like you could leave him on an island for like 15-20 minutes no matter who he's against, and he's going to end up in a position where in a team fight he's going to threaten somebody in the backline no matter what defenses they've got, no matter whether they have summoner spells. It feels like somehow 𝘁𝗁 finds a way to put a bunch of aggression into the members that absolutely need it. In this case, Eddie and 𝘁𝗀 have to be very careful and tread lightly around 𝘁𝗁's 𝘁𝗁.
And touching on this whole team fight that we might be seeing from 𝘁𝗀𝗁, you've got what almost feels like a really nice Protect the Jinx composition with the 𝘀𝗀 and the 𝘀𝗀𝗄 Leona, a lot of peel that can be offered, but at the same time, it offers a lot of backline access as well. The 𝘀𝗀 going forward, Hero's Entrance on a top Solar Flare, and then of course, 𝘁𝗁, any good 𝘁𝗁 can do so much work in a backline.
It can. Actually, this was pretty nice for 𝘁𝗁 too, because you saw DMK kind of poke his nose up here, and Negia had actually had the wave with 3 minions, and he was able to push it out, and that meant about nothing. And now 𝘁𝗀 might be able to find DNK. I'll take this point really quick before you end up jumping into another point and going away.
Flash forward with a flag and drag. It's smited down by DNK. Hero's Entrance comes through. He's going to be able to find the knockup. There is no Ragnarok available. 𝘁𝗀𝗄𝗏 comes in. DNK tagged by the Zenith Blade. And it is a first blood going over to the 𝘁𝗀𝗁𝗁 jungler.
actually a little tragic right there. Well, amazing roam from 𝘀cie. Again, his ability to get out and about on the map is really impressive. I was hoping he would be able to land an E and actually get 𝘀𝗀𝗃 with that so that he could potentially throw the Q stun onto the likes of 𝘁𝗀 and they could follow up onto the Syndra, but that didn't happen. Instead, 𝘂𝗏 finds a nice roam into the mid lane, catching 𝘀cie on his way back down.
Now 𝘂𝗏 with the roam, not quite going to be able to get the final trample stack and find the crowd control onto 𝘀𝗀𝗃, who will be able to back and return to safety, but almost side of Team Secret being able to pull a kill back. But in the end, it is just 𝘀𝗀𝗃 burning his ultimate and not getting much out of it.
Yeah, the Leona, of course, with the W up is just deceptively tanky. And so right there, you pop the ultimate thinking, okay, she's going to get burst down. Maybe we'll have the ability to follow up even if multiple members show up. And then she's down to like 30, 40% health. And you're like, ah, man, Leona really does exist in this society. And yet we participate in it. This was sad from 𝘁𝗀 because he flash EQ'd and showed up to try to fight DNK just to get the blue buff. He ends up smiting it away faster. And this right here is the moment. Again, if 𝘀𝗀𝗃 ends up getting on a 𝘁𝗃, I feel like there's a lot. Okay, right in the midst of a replay, as in I thought we would go a whole day without actually having to worry about this, but unfortunately we are the VCS, so miss a little bit of a top lane dive that ends up going over to the way of 𝘁𝗏, and that also confirms the Rift Herald to come in from the side of Saigon as they can begin controlling the map with this Jarvan pick.
𝘂𝗏𝗏 just looking to snowball their lead. As the Predator comes through, they're going to be able to find the Taunt onto 𝘁𝗃𝗃, but no more than that. Instead, they turn their attention towards 𝘂𝗏, who is looking to try to make a cheeky old gank, but 𝘀𝗀𝗃 is actually knocked towards 𝘁𝗃𝗃, able to find the Shield of Daybreak. 𝘁𝗃𝗃 will flash out to safety, but 𝘁𝗀 has the Rift Herald, and this can be dropped instantly into the mid lane.
That can, if they want. I'm watching for Shogun because he's going to try to crack maybe the first plate off of this tower. I was thinking maybe they would just drop it immediately, but instead they're going to use the mid push that they just got and walk down towards the dragon, which I think is another very valid way of playing out this situation. The redeploy is something you have to fear. This is the play that we missed during the replay just a second ago, where 𝘁𝗏 it's just a jump from he and 𝘁𝗀, really nice. Also, the kill going to 𝘁𝗃𝗃 is humongous. This was the redeploy coming out from the side of Team Secret. They were able to get here fast enough to compete with 𝘁𝗀 for the red buff. You can see 𝘂𝗏 and DNK are close enough to actually respond to this, and so they not only don't get to use the Rift Herald in mid lane to get some plates, but they also aren't going to be able to catch the dragon on this play either, which is a little bit it's sad for Saigon Buffalo, because now, I mean, 𝘁𝗀 is a little bit low, they caught waves, so they're back a little bit further from everything else. DNK is finding a proper timing here to actually pull something away from Saigon Buffalo rather than continue to let them kind of command the entirety of the early game.
So although a Rift Herald in tow for 𝘁𝗀, ensure Team Secret will be able to get a Drake, but it is nothing but a consolation prize as a Super Mega Death Rocket is fired in celebration of Team Secret securing the Cloud Drake.
And now this Rift Herald usage has to be under scrutiny, just because, again, giving up what was effectively going to be 2 plates guaranteed, maybe a 3rd plate even guaranteed, and especially when that gold is going to go on to Shogun, if everybody else is able to retreat from that area, or a minimum split between 𝘁𝗀 and Shogun, you have to give me a really good usage of this Rift Herald in order to make it worth not only not getting that gold, but then also giving up the dragon, because you were kind of wishy-washy about when you were going to put it down, when you were going to make the play. It seems like mid lane is the target of affection.
Flag and drag, 𝘁𝗀 trying to hunt onto 𝘁𝗃𝗃. The Predator was popped by 𝘁𝗏𝗃, but won't use anything more. In fact, sorry, it was a 𝘁𝗃𝗃 who also used his Predator to get out. I forgot, everyone runs Predator these days. Gone are the good old days of Syndra with an electrocute.
A lot of members like to take this rune. I've also seen plenty of others, actually. 𝘁𝗃𝗃 is in a position where it feels like he has to respond to what 𝘁𝑒 has been capable of doing, which in this case is roaming all over the place, and so the Predator helps him do that quite a bit more. I assume is the theory here for the likes of 𝘁𝗃𝗃 on this Syndra. I see the Predator on Syndra all the time. It's just, I guess that's the idea. It's like if you're playing against something that roams a bunch, there's problems.
I'm actually going to be playing it on Leona in support. I'm going to try it. I want to see how bad it is. I might invite 𝘀𝗀𝗃 over for some duo games and tank his MMR event.
I am sure that 𝘀𝗀𝗃 will not be accepting that invitation after this broadcast.
We'll see.
It's okay. We can actually watch this live unfold in real time. The tragedy that is Negia's top lane tower.
Solar Flare, Zenith Blade, it all lands. It's all beautiful from Saigon Buffalo. It's a kill, and the Rift Herald will charge and pick up a few plates. That all goes to 𝘁𝗀 because no one else is close enough to get the gold.
Not my favorite use of the Rift Herald. The defensive teleport was pulled from 𝘁cie at least for that, which is quite nice because that now opens up not only I mean you have Predator roams and stuff that can come out from the likes of the Galio, but now both the ultimate and the teleport available for 2 separate plays that 𝘁cie simply won't be able to respond to unless he was already like ahead of time to be able to respond to a bottom or a top side play, something along those lines. So even better also is like you had to pull off of bot lane here as Shogun just to make sure that top side play wasn't going to get punished, but they are here on the rotation to catch a DNK out of position where there's going to be problems for him now.
DNK is going to use a Ragnarok, but I don't know if it's going to be enough.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, but Nagia is sacrificed. DNK in the Cataclysm, and sure, 𝗀𝗀 is going to fall, but so does DNK. It's a 2-for-1. 𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝘀 coming out on a top, and 𝘀𝗀cie able to pick up a kill as well.
That time just overstaying. I understand the one regard to try to match the tower plating, but you've got a Jhin in your back pocket. Either help him take those plates and then back off and just look for like a wave bounce, which lets you get a free back timer against the likes of the Jinx, or don't do this at all. Or at least full commit to it with multiple members being able to support that play. Because right here, I mean, DNK is looking for camps. He's hovering Eddie. He's making sure he's going to be okay. But they are responding from the top side play. They have had plenty of time to get down here. You can see also that interaction you were talking about with DNK not being able to get through that Cataclysm is just enough to actually confirm the kill onto the likes of DNK, despite the fact that he traded back onto 𝗀𝗀. This has been a really good early game as well from 𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝘀, who I know our analyst has talked about what the composition from Team Secret is capable of doing, but I will iterate as well that this 𝘀𝗰𝗶𝗹𝘀 composition is actually really well rounded. Good backline access, good engage on a number of different kind of people in this composition, really good consistent damage. They've got solid kind of siege potential. They've got dive potential. They've got a bag of tricks to work with, and especially when they're up 2,000 gold in only 14 minutes of the game, it feels like a really good position to find yourself in.
Also, just want to quickly go on to the 𝘀𝗀cie CS stats. Back on the Galio and trailing by 20 CS at the moment. So it does seem to be, as you said, you know, when 𝘀𝗀cie's playing for the team, when 𝘀𝗀cie's roaming around, he finds himself trailing a lot in the CS department. Although I won't say that is the only downsides he has been having to his gameplay in the first few weeks. I think this series, he's been playing very well, even if he is down in CS in this second game.
For the number of roams and the amount he's been able to kind of find plays across the map between the likes of 2 kills, 2 assists, and everything else, being down 15 CS isn't really the end of the world, especially when something like this happens, where you moved 3 full members to the bottom side of the map to punish the Galio, and he predators out in front of you to come up here and cover and make sure that Shogun's going to be able to push into 𝘁𝗀cie and also cover for the Rift Herald take that's happening right above the heads of Team Secret. This seems like Zygon, and they're saying, okay, it's the opposite of the dragon stacking strategy. We don't care whether we have the first 2 dragons and we're kind of trailing gold, just trying to mitigate that. Instead, we want to be the ones who have the gold advantage so that we can take this big fight because we've got the initiation, we've got the members that are capable of taking that 5-on-5 and better aspect. And that's why they're playing around some of the earlier gold values that could actually come out from this composition. This is like 𝗀𝗀cie𝗀 taking the Rift Herald with the intention of dropping it to get maximized gold out of a tower, be able to put a pressure around the map with all 5 members as one.
The engage comes through onto Zhu Hao, but who will die first? The curtain call trying to snipe its way onto 𝘁𝗀cie. Ends up missing a few shots. 𝗀𝗀cie𝗀 low, Shogun low, 𝘁𝗀cie low as well. 𝗀𝗀cie𝗀 going to take the flag and drag out to safety. Here is Entrance just buying a little bit of extra defenses for the jungler. And no one dies in the mid lane skirmishes, all the while 𝘁𝗀cie𝗀 just in the top lane, getting a wave to crush under the inner tower.
Getting close to getting onto the first item and the mythic item being completed, as well as the Zhonya's out from the likes of the 𝘁𝗀cie could mean quite a bit. Oh my goodness, Nagia's probably executed.
Nagia's just going to... Oh, he doesn't
I love
even
that.
need to land a shuriken flip.
This is the new busted hotness for 𝘁𝗀cie𝗀, man. He has shown the mechanics that, like, I remember specifically because I've worked for a college and we have a pretty high level team here in America. And they're like top 5 in collegiate here. And one of our mid laners was working on this 𝘁𝗁 mechanic where you're able to kind of cancel some of your animations between the E and the ultimate. 𝘁𝗀cie𝗀's making it look like butter, man. It makes it look like it's easy for anybody to do when it's actually a very hard thing to try to cancel those. Our mid laner was working on it for basically like an hour or two, something like that. He just does it easily, but
𝘁𝗀cie flashing over the flame jumpers to land the scatter of the week and get the kill on to Shogun. So, I mean, a fair bit burnt by Team Secret, but they get the kill, and that's the important thing.
I suppose. The kill does also go onto your Syndra, which is nice, but 𝘁𝗀 hasn't been able to do too much with gold during the course of this series, at least not yet. Last game on the Vex was able to do very little over the course of all things. I guess the Syndra is rather important in this game because it is one of your kind of major damage dealers alongside the Jace and the Jhin, and all three components need to be operating at full mast in order to make sure that like there is some competition, because otherwise, I mean, if your Syndra is not going and they just build armor against the likes of the Jace, who's already down 4 kills, or 4 deaths, my apologies, and the Jhin, who doesn't have great DPS in the first place, there's no real threat onto the front line. Like 𝘁𝗀, 𝘁𝗀, 𝘀𝗀 can just live forever if they've got the right assortment. So getting a kill onto 𝘁𝗀, diversifying that damage that's going into them a little bit is helpful for some of the team fighting that is to come about. So it's nice to see that 𝘁𝗀 willing to make that aggressive move just to try to get some semblance of counterplay to come out here.
Well, for 𝘁𝗀𝗶𝗶𝗹𝘀, 2,000 gold ahead. And, okay, how disgusting is 𝘁𝗀 going to be in this game?
Extremely.
Because,
I mean,
yeah.
Look at him. He's got, what, third most farm in the game as a top lane Akali. He's already shown off like flexing mechanics on pretty much everyone across the board. Like, it's insane. They've got 2 members here. I don't think they win this.
Yep, well, 𝘁𝗀𝗋, he doesn't even take that much damage. Scatter of the week, though, will do a fair bit of work. And Team Secret force out. Cataclysm going to lock it down. The Alistar, you could headbutt his way to a minion, but in the end, he's going to have to flash away. Mega Death Rocket will do a little bit of extra work. Flank coming in from 2 members. Hero's entrance on top will find the knock-up onto 𝘁𝗀. 𝘁𝗀 is sent back to the fountain. Meanwhile, 𝘁𝗀 able to find the kill onto the cow, but guess what? Beef ain't that worth it if you're going to die in the process. 𝘁𝗀 now potentially looking for some damage onto 𝘁𝗀, who's going to be able to sidestep everything. DNK getting engaged on, headbutted by a Galio. Not even an Alistar. Scatter the week. A couple more autos would be enough from 𝘁𝗀, but 𝘁𝗀 just can't get into him. 𝘁𝗀 with a magical feat, and in the end, 𝘁𝗀 gets the kill. I don't think that was necessary from 𝘁𝗀, but he wanted to be there for the death of the Syndra. Sadly, he died as well. It was a dual funeral occurring in the brush.
I kind of really hope we get a replay of that, because 𝘁𝗀 had a really good start to that play. But all things considered, I mean, this is already a huge gold advantage akin to what we saw in the previous game from Saigon. And even better, I mean, you see the members who are actually fed. You've got your mid lane Galio, who's a good amount of magic damage. Your Akali is getting there, which is huge. And then your Jinx is also 200 CS, 3 kills in the early game. The Jinx is online as well. The team fighting is well and truly established now from the side of Saigon. There is almost no way you can do anything else. So this started with the engagement on the 𝘁𝗀, who has this the ultimate on the likes of the Alistar, really easy to get out, kind of pressures back Eddie and 𝘁𝗀 from the rest of the fight. And this was cool because they are like, oh, let's flank. And 𝘁𝗀 just flashes into the face of the Syndra and says, no, you, that's not going to happen. And then he's just brawling with 𝘁𝗀 on the left side of the fight, which is kind of funny as well, because the rest of the team just turns away and they're focusing on Team Secret. And 𝘁𝗀's like, nah, I just got this. I'll keep 𝘁𝗀 where he's at right now. And you see how that duel ends up going, because the 2 of them are still brawling even to this moment, even as everybody else only just now begins to collapse. 𝘁𝗀, you are my hero. You are the Leona I want every Leona to be, because that was some very, very chat maneuvering right there.
But Rebel, what about my Leona?
Bad. I've seen your Morgana. If it's anything like that, it's just no.
Thing is, my Morgana is such a meme. It used to be one of the first champions I played when I got into the game, and my friends would hate me because I just inted a Morgana, couldn't play the champion. It was even worse when we played together. However, there is an Infernal Drake up. Team Secret want their 3rd Drake of the game. But 𝘁𝗀𝗶𝗶𝗹, I don't think are going to be having any of that nonsense. 𝘁𝗀 into the backline, and he provides an entrance for 𝘁𝗀 with a hero's entrance. 𝘁𝗀, 𝘁𝗀, Eddie, they can't even get into this fight right now, as a Deadly Flourish is a drop down the tag with the Shuriken flip. 3 members in the Cataclysm. Unleash Power is going to be able to find the kill onto 𝘁𝗀. Still members alive from Team Secret, but Shogun is excited. Shogun is throwing out the rockets. Down with 𝘁𝗀, maybe one more auto zap, sidestep by 𝘁𝗀. Can 𝘁𝗀 get close enough? Yes, he can. And the 5-point strike to pick up the 4th kill of the fight for 𝘁𝗀𝗶𝗶𝗹, who can turn their attention towards the outer tower in the bottom lane and their 1st Drake of the game as well.
I was just waiting for that moment to come, because like Shogun was dropping rockets into that Cataclysm like absolutely no other. The setup to that fight made it so that Team Secret was just playing on a back foot immediately. When you are the team that's got like a good amount of poke to be able to work your way into a pit, when you've got an Olaf on your side, you don't want to be stepping back for the most part. You kind of want to be pushing forward into this, and that's why they're taking position in the river ready for it. But 𝘁𝗀's flank made them really respect this. Look at what he was able to do to 𝘁𝗀, because he drops 𝘁𝗀 to a quarter health, forces the heal out, and then the Jinx rocket kind of forces the damage damage down onto he and 𝘀cie. They can't really put any poke in, and this is where 𝘁𝗀 has actually been amazing on this 𝘁𝗏, locking these people down with cataclysms to the best of their ability. 𝘀𝗀gy with a huge taunt keeps everybody in place so that 𝘁𝗏 can just drop damage. Unfortunately, I think one crit off necessarily from just like killing everybody inside of that cataclysm in one fell swoop, which would have led to all of this happening just a few seconds faster, maybe being able to catch up to the Jhin. But outside of that one kind of mishap that ended up leading to multiple members staying alive longer in the cataclysm than we would have expected, a perfect setup from Saigon. 𝘁𝗀, he throws the layup ready for Shogun to be able to slam dunk down. Everybody is just assisting the Jhin in taking over the team fighting phase, and there is no threat right now because DNK doesn't have the damage, and the poke just is not there from the remainder of the team because they're getting pressured off by the likes of 𝘁𝗀 and 𝘁𝗀, threatening for the engagement of 𝘁𝗀gy and 𝘀𝗀gy to follow up.
Well, DNK and 𝘁𝗀gy looking over to 𝘀𝗀gy. They don't have much threat. And, oh my god, 𝘁𝗀gy almost gets popped. And Super Mega Death Rocket tanked by 𝘁𝗀. So 𝘁𝗀gy won't fall. Eddie on his way up, and Saigon Buffalo won't be able to find any scraps. There is a Baron up on the Rift, but only 4 members of Saigon Buffalo and 5 of Team Secret. 𝘁𝗀 will flag and drag, and he'll be able to get out to safety.
What a fun time we're living in right now. I'm just anticipating more team fighting because that's really all Saigon wants to do. Anytime it seems like that they have a member like kind of on their own, I'm not saying that they're just like outright losing every play, but that's really the only way that Team Secret has been able to collect a number of kills in this game has been not through team fighting, but instead by just like individual moments of players standing too far forward, whether it be the Galio, whether it's 𝘁𝗀 on the 𝘁𝗀gy, whether it's the 𝘁𝗏 who's able to hit a mean cataclysm or something like that. You can see the TP back in from 𝘀𝗀gy is going to set themselves into a fantastic situation where mid lane is controlled. 𝘁𝗀's going to shove up the mid lane, and now all of a sudden you have the threat of, okay, if they start taking Baron, we have to walk into them, and that allows for Saigon to set up this massive team fight in a corridor. Or if we don't contest them, then all of a sudden they get Baron, and like, what are we supposed to do in this situation? And that's exactly the kind of bet that Saigon is going to issue them. They say, okay, are we going to take full Baron? Are we going to turn off this? Why don't you call our bluff if you think we're going to be able to? Although Shogun takes 2 shots from the Baron, and he has already have enough of that.
I want to go back to the analysis point you brought up about the fact that Team Secret, they aren't really able to win any fights. It's just sometimes they're able to catch up members of Saigon Buffalo. I just want to point out, that's like 95% of games where one team is like has a massive lead, which Saigon Buffalo have.
Yes and no, you can say that. Some games you can't pick anybody out. There are very dominating games in which you can't even cause a pick-off. And this is a game where the pick-off potential mostly comes from, like, okay, you've got 𝘁𝗀 from a distance, right? You've got Syndrus to be able to get locked down. You've got Jhin to be able to have lockdown, and the ultimate from a range. And that's one of the biggest reasons. And outside of that, it's just picking people off in side lanes, which is a way to scrap together bits of gold, but it's not a true way to get anything other than a little bit of, kind of itemization into the players that you hope need it. Trying to scrap as best as possible for damage into Eddie and 𝘁𝗀gy and 𝘁𝗀 so that they could try to do something in this game is really desperation from the side of Team Secret. But really, that's the only way they have back in. If their poke starts to land and they can put some onto Shogun, put some down into like 𝘁𝗀, all of a sudden you can't dive as easily, you can't team fight as easily. So that's what they're putting their focus into. It's just making sure the gold is in their pockets, even if they have to give gold up to the side of Saigon.
Well, right now, Team Secret, they can afford to give a little bit more gold. They can afford to give away a few more objectives. Team Secret have the first 2 Drakes of the game. Saigon Buffalo were able to pick up the 3rd, but that soul point still away at this point, and maybe Team Secret could look to trade a Baron for that Infernal Drake if they could dissuade Saigon Buffalo away from the Baron momentarily.
It'd be interesting, at least, to say, Team Secret, if they go for the dragon transformation or the kind of shift right here and right now, this would be an interesting play only because all of a sudden they're calling for, okay, we go for 4th dragon and then things get crazy. And Saigon is not willing to take that risk. They've got 𝘁𝗀 on a teleport angle, but they say, we're not willing to give up 3rd dragon to you because we don't want to coin flip this game. We're not going to full commit to the Baron. We have no reason to play a game and give you ways back in. So we're instead just going to work back into mid lane. We're going to have everybody show back up, and we're going to be ready to take back control of mid lane so that we can walk into bottom river. Although they continue to play this game around the Baron buff where it's like, okay, if Team Secret leave, all of a sudden we take Baron, and then maybe we can do enough damage to the base to make it worth it for the 3rd dragon and put you on soul point, give you a way back in. But I think ultimately what they really want is this dragon. They want to put themselves on second Infernal, give themselves those flat stacks, and deny from Team Secret another potential win condition that they could set up for themselves. And that's exactly what's happening. Saigon, they say, we're not going to let you have this. We're not going to let you kind of give yourselves a way back into the game. And there's no threat of Baron on the other side. The consistent damage from Team Secret does not exist. It's DNK, and other than that, they have good damage on multiple members, but they basically have to win a fight because their threat of the Baron does not come until far later into their build paths.
Just taking a look over at 𝘀cie, the 103. He's got 3 items, matching Shogun, but Shogun going to be getting stronger and stronger with the Jinx. One of the things that we did talk about actually in Picks and Bans Rebel was the fact that this Jhin can scale reasonably well, but it doesn't scale well into tanks. And you look over 𝘁𝗀, 𝘀𝗀, 𝘁𝗀, there's not much that 𝘀cie's going to be able to do against these 3, let's call them monsters.
It's we're in a situation where Jhin is not going to have a very pleasant time. Not only is Jhin not the most mobile champion to avoid what is effectively multiple dives that can come onto him, but like you said, again, armor stacking seems to be something incredibly valuable from the side of Saigon Buffalo. When you've got armor items on effectively 3 members here, it's not the easiest thing in the world to be able to blow somebody up, especially somebody like the 𝘁𝗁 who can avoid your auto attacks with the Shroud and can kind of do more of your health bar than you can to her in the course of that time. If you get CC'd up, you've got Cleanse and you've got like Flash to be able to work with, but that's it. There is no Mikhails this time around from your Thresh and in the pocket to be able to avoid that CC. So if you get caught up in the wrong situation, 𝘀cie all of a sudden is just not going to be able to accomplish anything in a fight. To me, the most valuable part of this Jhin is the ultimate, and if that's the case, that really is not a place you want to be, because that ultimate I often think of is not really being that kind of crazy of a game changer unless you are really ahead with it or able to find very good targets. But really, the only target you want to be dropping those shots onto in this game is Shogun.
Well, we'll see whether 𝘀cie can find any way to get onto Shogun. It will require 𝘂hao or Park8 being able to land some CC. That Baron still up. And Saigon Buffalo setting up for it and now starting it as well.
They've got the BF swords. 𝘁𝗀's here as well. They're going to speed through it. Again, Shogun is rather strong. There's no Infinity Edge done though for the Jinx, so there is that to consider. And now it's all about, okay, TP is coming in from both sides. A back coming out from 𝘁𝗀 if he wants to TP. I'm looking for a fight start. They're going to find 𝘂hao.
Yeah, they're going to turn. They're going to drop down the Cataclysm. The Curtain Call comes through from 𝘀cie. Solar Flare is going to be able to lock down Park, who gets blown up by 𝘁𝗀, goes to buy time. But he's just bouncing around. He's literally playing pinball and murdering all the members of the Team Secret. 𝘁𝗀, that was frigging insane.
Everybody else is playing checkers right now, and 𝘁𝗁 is playing League of Legends, baby. It is unreal what he was able to do right there in the course of that fight. Does that just win them the game? It is insane to think about. That's just going to be the game. They've got 25 seconds to be able to push this down. I mean, what, 𝘂hao might be the only person that spawns back up. He's not going to be able to stop the wave. That is a game-winning fight off the back of 𝘁𝗀 to 𝘁𝗁. This guy flexing that individual talent. It's something we haven't seen a ton of this split. There's been a number of performances from 𝘁𝗀 that have not looked very 𝘁𝗀, but that right there, that's about as 𝘁𝗀 as it gets.
In fairness, I'm going to give some kudos to my fellow support 𝘁𝗀, because that was a beautiful solar flare to lock down Parky, which essentially meant 𝘁𝗁 could just free fire on the Syndra at the start. But Saigon Buffalo, this series has been a fantastic performance from them.
Given the fact that Team Secret was looking revitalized, Team Secret was looking like a completely different team altogether when it came down to it, the fact that they came out this dominant is a little shocking. Not to mention the fact that they tried 2 different styles, where they had a very team-fighting style in both of these games. One of them was a lot more passive in the early game, one of them a lot more active in the early game, and both of them were able to find success. Nobody fell really, really behind, and everyone was salvageable. It was a really impressive series. If they can keep up that level of play against all targets, barring the fact that Team Secret may or may not be kind of still in the bottom 2, we haven't really seen them tested against a lot of these mid-tier teams. But if we assume that they are as good as they seem to have been able to be, and that's Saigon just had a great performance today, Saigon's looking really good. It's still a tough position to be in because SBTC beat them, so they have priority on like what would be the 4th spot for playoffs. But I don't want to see a Saigon like that end up losing out that quickly and not making it there.
Well, Saigon at Buffalo do have 𝘀�UE to face off later in the week on Friday, and then Team Flash. Team Flash should be the easy series. Rebel, thank you very much. We're going to be heading to our analyst desk as 𝘀𝐶y and Tim will give us their thoughts of this series. And I guess I'll jump to you first, because as I was saying to Rebel, for the side of Saigon Buffalo, a very impressive performance from them against Secret.
Definitely. I mean, I put it then 2-1 here because I was like Team Secret a bit on the rise, Saigon Buffalo a bit on the low. But actually, I mean, if we put it like into a bit of a hindsight, their SBTC series was like to some great extent just SBTC playing well and not them playing really poorly. So the 2-1 is kind of forgiven for them in that regard. And now Saigon Buffalo showed up 1-0, and with that also is in a good position to defend their 4th place spot because they maybe need it.
And Tim, going to you and looking over at the side of Team Secret. Team Secret struggled. Yes, they haven't won a series all split, with the exception of the 2 that they have against Team Flash. But Team Secret are just kind of established now as the 2nd worst team in the league, or the 7th best, depending on how you want to look at it. What's going wrong for them? Because for me, looking at that, 𝘀𝑠𝗀 just did not seem that he was able to have the performance that we have seen from him during other series this split.
Yeah, honestly, like they look more or less lost on every position. Like bot lane was consistently losing the 2v2s. I think I'm not sure if they actually got solo killed, but I had to burn multiple summoner spells. I consistently had to reset multiple times over both games. I think Parker in mid lane didn't look great. In game 2 he looked fine, but it is a very Syndra favored matchup, especially in the early levels. All that 𝘀𝑠𝗀 can really do is like regularly try to all in and hope that that Syndra misuses her scatter of the week. It didn't really happen, and so that is an easy lane that I would expect him to do. And Nagia on top lane really didn't look good, and then it's all down to 𝘀𝑠𝗀, who just isn't able to take over the game alone.
And 𝘀𝐶y, to go back to you and to look at Team Secret's next upcoming series, playing against 𝘀𝑠ky, playing against SBTC. This week for them is the week of them playing against all the mid-table teams, and they struggled against Saigon Buffalo. Do you see them being able to take a series off BTS or SBTC?
SBTC, I don't think they can take a TC against 𝘀𝑠ky. Maybe there's a slight chance. I mean, if they just draft a comp with a certain identity and just completely play towards that plan, there might be a chance. I mean, just now they played the full early game comp and it didn't quite work out against Saigon Buffalo. But maybe against 𝘀𝑠ky, where the individual players are not quite as strong, there might be a chance that might work against them. And maybe also like have some bit of a fallback plan, because like with this draft, if they all like win lane, win game, they can maybe do it with the Olaf pick, but they had like no fallback at all. I mean, 𝘀𝑠e not winning against 𝘀𝑚 was kind of a problem there. They had like only a 10 CS lead there, and the Olaf without an enchanter doesn't really do much if he just doesn't get a lead early. But against 𝘀𝑠ky, I mean, this is a lot easier to punish, and maybe just go towards the late game draft there against them and just try if that maybe works. They have a best of 3, so they can also drop again against them. And if they really have a clear plan, play towards that plan, don't make huge mechanical screw-ups over the game, they can, of course, take a series against 𝘀𝑠ky. Gotta say so, playoffs is, I'm not quite sure if it's mathematically impossible for them, but realistically, let's be honest, playoffs is not a thing that Team Secret can really strive for this time.
Okay. Final thoughts in terms of MVP for this series. Tim, I'll go to you first on this one.
MVP for the series. I mean, I think that I don't really have somebody who I would call out, okay, he's so much better than everybody else. I think somebody I want to shout out is 𝘀𝗀. I think he played really well over both of these games, and I think it was the right move to put him back in, because, I mean, they're trying to figure out which AD carry to play, and then we had it in last series as well. We said, okay, please play 𝘀𝗀, and they did, and I think it worked really well in the bot lane, and a really strong performance. And I think 𝘁𝗀 in top lane, especially in game 2, I mean, he was running over the entire game.
Okay. Well, 𝘀𝐶y, Tim, thank you very much for your thoughts on... Wait, actually, no, 𝘀𝐶y, I haven't got your MVP, have I?
You haven't. It's between 𝘁𝗀 and
We
𝘀𝗀.
don't want it either.
If I really have to put someone, I think I just put 𝘀cie because I mean he played 𝘁𝗀liche and absolutely styled on this pick. I mean we saw this last team fight. I mean it was a very genuine reaction for me that I just posted in Discord. You guys can all check it out. Either way,
Where is
𝘀cie,
this?
he picked something off meta and played very well with it. I like that he brought some new creativity to it. It is in general in our cast Discord. Either way, it's 𝘀cie over 𝘀𝗀 for me, but just a little bit better was 𝘀cie playing, and 𝘀𝗀 was also doing very, very fine. And there's like some argument maybe made for 𝘁𝗀, but overall, I mean, in the loss, he looked very rough, so I wouldn't really get to vote 𝘁𝗀 as the series MVP here.
All right. Well, 𝘀𝗀cie, Tim, thank you very much. We'll be back at tomorrow for 2 more series. Cerberus taking on Team Flash and SBTC taking on 𝘀𝗀𝗄. Today, Cerberus were able to take a 2-1 win over 𝘀𝗀cie and 𝘁𝗀𝗵𝗹𝗀 a 2-0 clean sweep over 𝘁𝗏. From everyone here at VCS English, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow. Stay tilt-proof on the Rift, and goodbye.